Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this special webinar about AP scores and their importance, especially in 2023. We are going to wait just another minute or two to let others join. But for everyone who's here right now, if you can do me a favor and test out the chat function or the Q&A, I want to make sure that you guys are able to hear me. So if you could just give me a thumbs up, raise your hand, put something in the Q&A so that I can see, that'd be great. Perfect. Thank you very much. And yes, the chat actually is not turned on since this is going to be a webinar, but if you have any questions throughout the course of the next 45 minutes to an hour, then please feel free to use the Q&A and I'll be sure to get through those one at a time. Okay, well, let's get started. So just to introduce myself, my name is John Kang. I've been with Elite Prep for about 11 years now, and it's been my great privilege and honor to work with hundreds of parents and students over the years, guiding them through the crazy college admissions and high school process. I'm sure that many of you guys have a lot of questions, especially as things have changed over the years with COVID, test optional, and just college admissions getting so much more competitive. So we're hoping that with this webinar, we can answer some of those questions, dispel some of those myths, and try to get into the role of AP scores in today's college admissions process. So without further ado, let's get started. All right, so an important caveat before we begin this whole thing is AP scores aren't everything. And I know that's kind of counterintuitive to the title of this seminar, but if you think that your AP scores are going to be the thing that either gets you into college or keeps you out of it, then I would like to say that that's not correct. And I think that there's a lot of liberty and freedom in that as well. So I don't want you to come into this seminar thinking that, so much hinges on this. And I'm doubtful that many of you even thought that way to begin with. But this is just one factor of many factors that are considered in the admissions process. So AP scores aren't everything. However, what we'll just explore in the rest of this hour is that AP scores are in fact important, and especially in the context of the age in which we live in right now, they're more important now than ever before. So why is that? Why are AP scores more important now than in recent memory? I want you to take a look at this chart. This is an admissions chart tracking from 1990 back to present day 2022. So the reason I picked 1990 is that if there are any parents here in this webinar, that may be around the time where you were applying to college yourself. Maybe some of you guys applied later, some of you applied earlier, but 1990 is probably around the time when you were in high school as a junior or senior applying for college. And back then, to get into schools like UCLA and UPenn, you had a 42% chance of admission, which by today's standards is just almost unthinkable, right? 40% chance to get into an Ivy League school. It's unheard of. Stanford and Harvard, as you can see, were more around 20 to 15%. But over the years, admissions got harder and more competitive until present day, where schools like Harvard and Stanford their acceptance rate is somewhere between 3 to 4%. And UPenn and UCLA is somewhere between 6 to 9%. And for Harvard and Stanford, some schools, especially the most selective Ivy League schools, they haven't even released their admissions numbers in recent memory because they felt that it was adding too much pressure to students and focusing too much on how they couldn't get in. Basically it being too discouraging. And so they actually stopped publishing it. But basically, we're able to put together from various sources that it's about 3 to 4% to get into Harvard and Stanford. So the chances of getting in are pretty bleak. Now, compare that to this green line here, which is tracking the percent of students who graduate from high school with an average grade of A. So that's not just in 1 or 2 classes, but an average for their whole transcript. So in the 1990s, it was somewhere around 30%. But according to the most recent study done by the Department of Education, it's hovering near 50% of students graduating with an A average. So if we kind of flip the perspective a little bit and you put yourselves in the position of an admissions officer, you can see how this can be very problematic as acceptance rates are dwindling increasingly, but grades are trending upwards increasingly. It makes it very hard to determine who deserves a seat in the freshman class. Now, one thing that you'll find if you ask almost any admissions officer, or if you go to any college admissions website, is that the number one predictor of success in college is GPA. Now, of course, built into that is also the rigor of the classes you're taking. So if you just take all easy or regular classes and get straight A's, that doesn't mean that you're going to do well in college. Obviously, you have to challenge yourself. But GPA is the number one predictor of success. I don't think anyone's surprised by that here. But in light of everyone's GPA trending upwards and having no signs of slowing down, and especially as we enter into this post-COVID era, where schools are trying to help their students, not be too stressed about schoolwork and trying to reduce the homework load, and all of those are good things, but inevitably, everyone's grades are going to be trending up. So the question becomes, what happens when everyone's GPA starts to coalesce, when it starts to look the same? And as unpopular as they are in terms of solution, this is where standardized testing comes back into play. Now, to be fair, test scores are far from perfect. Test scores will never tell you the full picture of someone's potential, someone's ability, their drive, their grit, their determination, their ability to overcome obstacles and setbacks. And every college that you talk to will tell you this exact same thing. However, test scores are useful. And this is, coming from Elite Prep, which is known for its test prep. We've been doing this for 36 years. It may sound biased. So I went ahead and put together quotes from the universities themselves about what they say about their standardized testing policies. MIT last year said, after careful consideration, we have decided to reinstate our SAT and ACT requirement for future admission cycles. Our research shows standardized tests help us better assess the academic preparedness of all applicants. So this is straight from MIT's website. And so, as we all know, for the last few years, most colleges have been either test optional or test blind. Test blind meaning even if you wanted to submit your SAT, ACT scores, you weren't able to, as is the case at the UCs. But most private schools and highly selective schools, they implemented a test optional policy, meaning that, well, you could submit it if you want to, but you don't have to. But MIT has said, you know what, after we did all this research, and we know how data-driven and how quantitatively MIT approaches the admissions process, they decided to reinstate it. Yale, additionally, said that their internal research has consistently shown that ACT and SAT scores are a significant predictor of a student's undergrad academic performance. And this is straight from Yale's website. Now, that's all good for ACT and SAT, but what about AP scores, which is what we're talking about today? The reason why I mentioned ACT and SAT scores and how they're making a comeback at these highly selective institutions is that it's all part of the standardized testing umbrella. So there's a reason why colleges value standardized testing. But let's find out what they say about AP scores specifically. So this next quote that I'm going to share with you is from Bill Fitzsimmons. He's the former dean of Harvard University. He was the dean for years and years and years. And he actually did a sit down with the New York Times. Now, this was from a while back, and you'll know because they mentioned the SAT subject test, which we know College Board discontinued in 2021. However, what he shared in this candid sit-down Q&A with the New York Times was, I thought, fascinating and really enlightening. So what he said was, our studies consistently demonstrate that standardized tests are helpful in predicting Harvard grades. Of course, many other factors are important too. High school grades, teacher counselor rec letters, intangible personal qualities that are reflected throughout the application. We have found that the best predictors at Harvard are advanced placement tests and international baccalaureate exams, closely followed by the College Board subject tests. High school grades are next in terms of predictive power, followed by the SAT and the ACT. So the thing I appreciate about Dean Fitzsimmons is he gave a really honest, factual, and clear answer. I think in today's day and age, it's a lot harder to be so candid because it really is pretty much a faux pas to say that standardized testing is useful or important. That's not the climate that we live in. That's not what the news cycles are trying to put out. And it's kind of against the face of what higher education institutions strive to be. But these are from himself, the Dean of Admissions at Harvard, saying that standardized testing is important. And not just that, but that AP scores of all the factors were the best predictors at Harvard. So I thought that was interesting. So let's take a look at what Harvard says about AP scores now. So their policy is a little more encompassing now. It's saying that in any admissions process, additional information can be helpful. For example, advanced placement, international baccalaureate, A-levels, national leaving examinations, national or international contests, early high school assessment scores, PSAT, pre-ACT, or courses taken outside your school during the school year or summer are just some examples of information that could be submitted. So the thing I want to draw attention to is that first sentence, which is, in the admissions process, additional information can be helpful. And the reason I want to draw attention to that is that colleges are highly, highly data-driven institutions. Highly data-driven, especially when it comes to admissions. So any additional information you can give them is going to help them make a better determination of your candidacy at that college. And that's what colleges want. They want more information, which is why you don't see higher education institutions just going completely test blind, because they still want to have the ability to get those scores from you if you're able to produce them. Here's what Duke says about their AP scores. We value AP scores when available as demonstrations of subject mastery to complement your academic transcripts. You should self-report these scores in your application. We will require an official score report from students who matriculate at Duke who wish to use those scores for credit or placement. Just really quickly, let's look at a couple more. Rice says, and Rice is a top 15 university year in, year out. AP exam scores show mastery of content knowledge in specific subjects and may be eligible for undergrad course credit once a student enrolls. UCSD, if you complete advanced placement courses, we recommend that you complete the related AP examination to demonstrate subject mastery. So I don't know if you caught that, but these last three colleges, Duke, Rice, UCSD, just to name a few, they all said AP scores are a way to demonstrate subject mastery. In other words, then what's the A for? If I get an A in the class, doesn't that demonstrate subject mastery? Well, we just saw earlier, 50% of students are graduating with an A average. So no, A's don't mean what they used to mean. And the AP scores help to validate your grades. And finally, UW, University of Washington says, we recognize AP coursework as a challenging academic program that provides excellent preparation for university study. So again, the values of AP exams and AP scores. So I hope by now we have established that AP scores are important, that colleges use them to determine your readiness to take on college level coursework. So really briefly, just in case there's anyone here that doesn't really know too much about the AP format, I'm going to go very quickly through AP Exams 101. They're basically designed to be like a freshman level course equivalent. So AP Bio is like taking first year biology at the college level. And you usually register for these exams through your school. Although if you live near an elite branch that can connect you with a test center, then we might be able to help you register for AP exams outside of your school. The tests are usually multiple choice and free response, and they're administered in the first few weeks of May. So for those of you that haven't been keeping track, the test is coming up in a little over 2 months. So yeah, time to start studying is now. Students receive scores ranging from 1 through 5 sometime in July. I think last year the scores came out on July 5th. So this year it'll probably be something similar. And scores of 3 and up typically earn you college credit, although policies will vary. Now, what do these scores mean from 1 through 5? Well, 5 means extremely well qualified, meaning that if you were to take that class in college, you would get an A or even an A+ in that course. If you got a 4 on the AP exam, that means you're very well qualified. That's equivalent to somewhere between a B and an A-, and so on and so forth. So obviously the scores that you want to shoot for are at the minimum are 3, but 4s and 5s are what are considered strong scores. Here are the score distributions from last year. This is taken directly from College Board's website. AP Physics 1 clocks in at the lowest rate of 5s with 7.9%. AP Environmental Science, which I feel like a lot of students sometimes assume is an easy AP, 8.9%, the second lowest rate of 5s. AP English Language, 10%. AP US History, 10%. AP Computer Science Principles, 11%. Now, I'm only focusing on the 5s for now, but obviously you can see the rest of the data here. And the reason for this is, when you're taking these AP scores, a score of 3, it's not going to help you. It's not going to hurt you. It's going to be more neutral. 4 is going to help you, and 5 is going to really, really help you. So we want to aim for 4s and 5s when we're studying for these AP exams. But we'll get to more score nuance questions later on. And then just to round out the next 5 most popular subjects, we have AP Chem, AP Bio, AP Psych, AP Calc, AP Computer Science. And you can take a look at all those percentages here. Now, one thing that's not mentioned here that you can find online is AP Calc BC actually has one of the highest rates of 5s. I think it's around 40 or 42%. That does not mean that you should take the AP Calc BC exam because it's easier. That's definitely not what that means. It's just that typically students who are taking Calc BC are juniors or seniors. They're doing well in math. That's why they're in Calc BC. And so it's a little bit of a self-selection bias in terms of who's taking the test and why those 5 rates are higher. So that's just one kind of fun fact to keep in mind. Now, let's talk about other benefits of having strong AP scores. So one thing that I think gets really underrated in the AP exam process is that you can actually earn awards, academic awards and honors that you can list on your college application. And you might be thinking, oh, okay, well, doesn't everyone get these awards? The answer is no, because when you think about your AP course load, you're like, oh, okay, well, I'm planning to take, maybe 1 or 2 classes my sophomore year, maybe 2, 3, 4 classes my junior year. And then senior year is when I'm going to go heavier. Maybe I'll do like 3, 4, even 5 AP classes. Some students are doing more than that, some are less, but I'm just giving you an approximation. The AP scores that you earn in your senior year will not count toward this award, at least in terms of your college applications. Because guess what? You apply for college your senior year in November, December. You're not going to take your AP exams until after you find out where you're going to college. So don't think, oh, I can just use my senior year scores to add to that. It doesn't work like that because it only counts what you've done through junior year. And I can tell you this from having worked with hundreds of students on their college applications, the awards and honors section of the Common App and then the awards section of the UC app is typically one of the most blank, empty spaces on students' applications. And that's because it's really hard to earn academic awards. Where do you even find academic competitions? Obviously, there's things like Chemistry Olympiad, Math Olympiad, all the different Olympiads and quiz bowls. Sometimes schools have departmental awards like English Student of the Year, Math Student of the Year. But one, those are pretty rare, and two, they're really, really hard to earn. So AP awards and honors are very accessible, very tangible, and it also tells colleges immediately you have a very high baseline, a very high standard of work. So this is something that I think is a pretty underrated part of taking AP exams and doing well, is getting recognition and being able to put that award on your application. Another benefit is demonstrating mastery. Now, we already talked about this, but I want to go over it in a little more depth. So one thing to remember is, in general, your grade in an AP class is much more important than the score that you get in the subject. And what I mean is in a vacuum. So if I had to choose between getting an A in a class and getting 5 on the exam, obviously, we all know getting an A with a 5 is the best case scenario. But if you had to choose one or the other, like, is it better to get a B in the class and a 5 on the exam, or an A in the class and a 3 or 4 on the exam? Typically, it's better to get an A in the class. But once you can get an A and get a 4 or a 5 on the AP exam, that's where you really start to differentiate yourself from the rest of the group. Because remember what we just saw. Again, 50% of students are graduating high school with an A average, but only 7, 8, 9, 10% of students are getting 5s on the AP exams. So how can I, as an A student, distinguish myself from the millions of other A students in the world? It's by being one of those 7 to 10% of students that get a 5 on the AP exam. So this is you helping colleges see that you're special, that you have what it takes, that your grades mean something beyond just the letter on the transcript. So although grades are important, if you can supplement them with strong scores, that's how you demonstrate mastery. And again, it's in this midst of the grade inflation and test optional, the test scores are really helpful in terms of validating your scores. Now, one side note is, let's say you got a B in your AP class first semester. You can't do anything about it. You can't change your grade. You can sort of make up for it by getting a 5 on the AP exam, because that at least shows colleges like, oh, okay, for one reason or another, he didn't do so well first semester. But look, they got a 5 on the AP exam. And what I want you to imagine is this: when people are reading your application, they're trying to find ways to build you up, not tear you down. I know that sounds so hard to believe because it's such a competitive process, But college application readers are trained to be your advocate. They're trained to argue on your behalf or in your favor. And so if they see a B on a transcript, that's not ideal for you. But if they can at least say, hey, but look, John got a B first semester, but he brought it up to an A second semester, and he got a 5 on the AP exam or a 4 on the AP exam. That definitely counts for something. So you want to give these readers as much kind of like ammunition as you can to fight on your behalf, so they can argue for you and advocate for you. But if you get a B in the class and you don't submit AP scores, that they have very little to say in terms of arguing in your favor. So you want to give them as much material as you can to argue on your behalf. Also, don't forget, AP scores are the only common denominator between students taking the same AP class all over the country and even within your school. Some schools, some really large schools, you have multiple AP teachers for the same subject. Or even if your school only has one AP teacher per subject, how do we compare an A from this school to an A from another school and another school? It's really hard to do that. So obviously having some kind of standardized metric, some objective quantifiable score helps colleges do that on your behalf. All right, so how much do AP scores matter to colleges? Again, we said this in the beginning, no single factor will make or break your chances. AP scores are no exception. However, having strong, mostly 5s and some 4s, is one of the best and objective ways to validate your grades, demonstrate mastery. Do you need strong AP scores to get into top schools? No. Would it help? Absolutely. So again, do you need it? No. Do you want it? Yes, you definitely want it. And it doesn't necessarily have to be all 5s, all 5s and 4s. You can have some 3s. You can even have some non-passing scores mixed in there. And we'll talk about the nuance of, those scores later on. And generally speaking, the more selective the college, the more advantageous it is to have strong AP scores. So if you're applying to a school with a 30% acceptance rate, no, AP scores are not going to be that important. But if you're applying to a school with a 5 to 10% acceptance rate, then absolutely you want those AP scores to distinguish you. Also, it goes by major. If you're applying for selective majors like engineering, computer science, in some cases business, then having strong AP scores, especially in your major related subjects, can be very valuable. In the words of an MIT admissions officer, so Matt McGann is the former director of admissions at MIT. He's now dean of admissions at Wellesley College. He said, "We too expect students to challenge themselves, especially in the analytical disciplines, since MIT is, by any estimate, an analytically rigorous school. It is true that few students who had the option to take AP Calc and an AP Science and chose for no good reason not to take them find themselves admitted." I'm going to read that again. Few students who had the option to take it and didn't find themselves admitted. So if you could have taken it, but you didn't, why? That's the question that they have. And so obviously, there's a lot of ways to demonstrate creativity, intellectual curiosity, excitement outside the classroom and inside the classroom. But they're saying, you're spending most of your time at school in the class. So try to take advanced classes when relevant, when possible. One thing I want to note about his message, though, and if you read his blog post on this, you have to look at the context. This is not saying take every subject as an AP. This is saying if you're going to be a STEM major, you better take AP STEM classes. But don't feel like you need to take everything AP, because that's a recipe for disaster. I can't tell you how many students I've worked with in the past that bit off more than they could chew because they thought that colleges wanted them to take AP everything. And then that one AP class that they probably shouldn't have taken, but they ended up taking, that ends up being 50 to 60% of the stress, the workload, the time that they have to spend studying. It just takes up a disproportionate amount of your time and energy. And it doesn't have to be that way. But if you're applying for a certain major, then it's a good idea to take APs in that subject. And we're going to talk about a few of those common groupings in just a second. Another benefit of taking AP classes and getting AP scores is college credit. So obviously, you've heard that if you get a 3 or higher on the AP exam, that you can earn college credit. So let's explore that a little bit further. This will save you money. Now, I know some of you guys, this concept of saving money through AP courses is very foreign because, I mean, you haven't had to really pay for anything so far, right? Your parents are taking care of all that. But an AP class that gives you credit that you don't have to take that class in college can literally save you thousands of dollars, if not tens of thousands over the course of 4 years. So it's a huge, huge deal to be able to take AP classes, AP scores, and turn them into college credit. But not only that, it gives you advanced standing. And what that means is when you apply to college, you're a freshman. But if you've taken enough AP classes and have enough AP scores, you can combine those credits and get advanced standing so that according to the registrar, you're not a freshman anymore. You're more like a sophomore or even like a junior. And what that means is when it comes time to applying for your classes or registering for your classes, you get to register before all the other freshmen. You get to register before everyone behind you. So we always hear these horror stories of you go into college and you're trying to take a lower level chem class or a lower level computer science class, and it's full. So you have to wait until the next semester, or you have to wait until summer. You can avoid a lot of that headache if you have enough AP credits, get advanced standing, and now have priority registration. So it's one of those things that you don't even know you need it until you get it. But once you have it, and you're talking to your friends who are just struggling to get those classes, you'll feel really thankful and relieved that you took advantage of that during high school. But every college has different policies, so it's not like this applies universally, but that is something that you can look up. So if you want to Google AP credit policy search, it's a College Board resource where you can type in any college name and you'll see what their policy is for awarding AP credit or college credit for AP scores. So it'll tell you, oh, if you want to go to Stanford and you have math, science, and language AP scores of 4 or 5, you can get credit. But for certain classes, you can't. And then for UCs, 3s, 4s, and 5s can be used for credit, but then it also depends on your major and department. All right, so here let's get to some of the more technical questions. What should I do if I scored a 1 or 2? So some of you here, you already took APs, maybe your freshman year, sophomore year, even your junior year, and you scored a 1 or a 2. Like, what should I do? Our advice, well, first of all, let's look at one piece of good news first. So according to College Board, students who earn a 2 on an AP exam often earn a higher score on the next exams you take, whatever it may be. You're also more likely to attend college and graduate on time than students who didn't take AP. You'll also do better when you get to college. So it's not like, oh, I got a 1 or a 2, it was a waste of time. No, it's not. There's still value in taking the AP exam. That being said, we generally recommend that students do not submit scores of 1 or 2 to colleges when you apply, especially if it's related to your major. Okay, so what does that mean? When you apply to college, AP scores are something that you self-report on the application. So if you got a 1 or a 2, you can elect not to share that you got a 1 or a 2. How will colleges look at that? We'll answer that question actually in just a bit. But if you got a 1 or a 2, there's really no need to share that because reporting a score of 2 offers no significant benefit. There's just no plus side. So if you got a 2 or a 1, just leave it off. Don't worry about it. Now, what about a 3? This is where it gets a little tricky. Should I report scores of 3? In general, if you're applying to top colleges, I'm talking like top 20 schools, Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Stanford, Northwestern, Columbia, that kind of school, threes are not going to help you, with one exception. We'll talk about that in just a second. Um, Especially if it's related to your field of study. Now, we have exceptions. For example, we have a student who got a 3 on the AP Computer Science exam, but was admitted to Stanford for computer science. Now, I'm sure there's a lot of you out there in the audience thinking, oh, that's me. Like, I got a 3, now I can get into Stanford. That's not the point of this anecdote. The point is saying that your AP scores, again, are not the end all be all. Stanford, we know, is a very, very selective institution, especially when it comes to computer science. So how does a student who got a 3 get into Stanford for computer science? Well, there was extenuating circumstance. So this student, their AP computer science teacher, unfortunately had to take leave for the majority of the school year due to a medical condition and medical reason. And the substitute that was brought in didn't exactly do a great job of helping the students prepare. And so this student formed a study group, studied, did the best that he could. All he was able to manage was a 3. But after that, he did a variety of computer science related activities, coding projects and whatnot, and included that on his application to demonstrate like, hey, I know computer science. I know I only got a 3, but this is what I'm capable of. And so, the students submitting the 3, that was their way of explaining, what happened when they got that score. And so that's something that I kind of just want to share with you so that you can be proactive. Don't think, oh, I got a 1, I got a 2, I got a 3, well, there's nothing I can do about it. No, there are things you can do about it. You can take another community college class in that subject, get an A in that class, and hopefully just add more to your academic profile, showing that you have proficiency and mastery in that subject. You can do an independent project like this student did. In very extreme cases, you can even retake the AP exam. Now, your school may or may not allow you to retake an AP exam that you've already taken, but it's not College Board's policy to say one and done. So if you can find another school to register at, typically a private school or somewhere outside, then your highest score is what's going to be used in the admission process. So I don't recommend taking AP exams again and again, but in extreme cases, yeah, you might need to take it more than once. Now, reporting scores of 3 could be beneficial at mid-tier colleges and UCs, since 3s do qualify for college credit. So it's kind of like top-tier schools, probably not, but there are exceptions. Mid-tier schools and UCs, since they offer credit, yeah, go ahead. And then scores of 3 may be better regarded when it's not related to your major. So, example, if you're a computer science major, but you got a 3 in AP US history, go ahead and share that 3, because that's actually better than obviously getting a 1 or a 2. And so it's okay to share scores, especially if it's not related to your major. But typically speaking, if it's a selective school and it's related to your major, it's probably better not to mention it. Now, all these very nuanced decisions, these are perfect questions to ask to your elite counselor, because they are experts in these situational hypotheticals. So if you aren't sure because you have a very specific situation, feel free to ask your elite counselor and they'll help you get that sorted out. Now, how do colleges view incomplete score records? Meaning you took 3 AP classes this year, but when they look at your scores, you only shared 1 of them, or 2 of them. How do they view that? In other words, does it look bad if I take a class but don't report the exam score? College readers are trained not to make assumptions about your scores, but they're only human. So at highly selective colleges, it can look questionable if you have strong grades in many AP classes, but don't report your AP exam scores. I mean, this is kind of like the common sense test, right? If a student over the course of their high school career, took 5, 6 AP classes, got A's in all of them, but don't have any scores to report, it's not a big leap to wonder why they're not reporting those scores. So, you know, obviously, it's colleges aren't dumb, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So if you don't have time to study for all your APs, just focus on the ones that match your intended major, right? We talked about this before. If you're going to be, and we'll just get to the actual examples here. So if you're going to be pre-med, focus on bio, chem, physics, calculus, maybe psychology. Engineering, very similar list, but also add comp sci. If you're going into business, macro econ, micro econ, English, because it's great to have communication and analytical skills, calculus, obviously for the quantitative skills, and then psychology. And then pre-law, you know, you can do English, government, US history, European history, psychology, anything with very strong written communication and document reading and analytical skills. So this is not saying if you're going to be this major, you have to do every single one of these APs. That's not it. But these are the ones that you want to prioritize. So if you're taking, for example, this year, AP Calculus and AP US History and AP English, and you're trying to be a STEM major, focus on calculus. That's going to be the main score that they want to see. If you're trying to be a humanities major, then focus on English. You know, that's the main score they want to see. Not saying that you should abandon the other subjects, but we only have 24 hours in a day. You know, you can only have so many hours spent towards studying for APs. So use your resources wisely, focus on the subjects that are going to have the greatest ROI, the greatest return on investment, and that are going to help you the most. Should I study independently for AP exams even when I haven't taken the class for it? So this is a really interesting question because I used to work in a school district where there was a culture amongst the students to take AP exams for classes that they haven't taken. So we'll have like freshmen who are taking like AP biology, AP chemistry, even though they haven't taken those classes yet. And it was very, it was just bizarre, to be honest, because they ended up having to go to, you know, academies 2-3 times a week for 2, 3, 4 hours a class to study this subject and then take the exam, even though they haven't taken the class for it. And then the school wouldn't even let them take that AP class in the future because, hey, you already took the AP exam. Why do you need the class? So that's obviously a very extreme example, but I would say that if you have a strong body of work, like you already have good grades and you have lots of AP honors classes and you want to take extra ones because you couldn't fit it into your schedule or you just really want to take it, then yeah, that's okay. You know, and it's not a bad thing. But don't bite off more than you can chew, okay? It's generally almost always better to take the class for credit and take the AP exam because course credit counts for much more than just the AP exam score without a class grade, because your class grade is like your entire body of work. It represents what you've done over an 8-9 month span, as opposed to just a 3-hour test. So yeah, when possible, take the class. But if you are really advanced and you're doing really well, then yes, you can independently study for an AP exam. Just make sure that you are really ready to study for it on your own because, you know, it is going to be time consuming and it's going to be a bit of a challenge. So the natural question next is, how should I study for the AP test? I would say first, take advantage of your school-led review sessions. Some of you have excellent AP teachers. That's a huge blessing. Don't take that for granted. If you know that your teacher is known for producing lots of passing scores, and not just passing scores, but a high number of 5s, then just trust what they're doing. Your teacher obviously knows what they're doing. They have a strong track record. take advantage of that school-led review session or resource. But let's say that maybe your class isn't really known for getting lots of good AP scores. And then also you're looking at your textbook, you're on unit 6 out of 14, and the AP exam is 2 months from now. Clearly there's a disconnect there, right? So in that case, you might want to form a study group. Obviously there's Google and YouTube. You can find anything online nowadays. And one thing that I thought would be kind of fun was, we all know, like, we've heard of ChatGPT. I'm sure many of you guys have tried it. So I actually asked ChatGPT, what's the best way to study for the AP physics exam? Because that's the one that had the lowest passing score. And this is what ChatGPT said. Understand the exam format, know the content, practice with past exams, use online resources like Khan Academy, AP Classroom, College Board, form a study group, and ask for help. So, I don't know what I was expecting. Maybe I was expecting ChatGPT to just open the heavens and just show me all the answers to the AP exam for this coming year. But this is all just like common sense stuff, right? So what I want to touch on is this last part, ask for help. So, Elite has been doing test prep and college admissions prep for 36 years, as I mentioned, since 1987. We are experts when it comes to standardized tests and college admissions as a whole. So we can help you in a number of ways. Our instructors are so experienced. They know exactly what's going to be on the test. They know exactly what's going to be tested, what percent of questions relate to that subject. And so if you need some more motivation and some more help, if you need some structure, some accountability, then I highly, highly recommend that you reach out to your local Elite branch, because they have a lot of resources at their disposal, and our classes are proven to work. And we want to remove some of the stress that you have right now, having to study on your own. So just really quickly, I just want to go over the recap, kind of like the benefits of studying for AP exams. So obviously we have college admissions has never been more competitive. GPA inflation is an all-time high. Scoring a 5 puts you in the top 7, 10, 15% of students nationwide. Again, nationwide. Colleges are accepting only 5 to 10% of students nationwide. You probably want to have a score that puts you in that category. AP scores demonstrate mastery. They validate your grades. You can earn academic awards to put on your college app. You can earn class credit, save money. You can get advanced standing and earn priority registration. You can demonstrate readiness for college level coursework. And you worked hard these past 8-9 months. You might as well get credit for it, right? So this is just a recap of why AP scores are important. For the rest of this session, we're gonna answer any questions that you have. I'm also launching a quick poll just to see, how can Elite help? So if you have a second, if you can just answer this question, how can Elite help? And, we will reach out to you with help if it's needed, and answer any questions that you have. So for the remainder of this session, I'm going to be answering the Q&As that come in. So if you have a question, get into Zoom, the Q&A, type it in. I see that, oh, wow, I have a bunch of questions already came in, so we're gonna get through these. But yeah, thank you for joining. We really appreciate you taking time to learn more about the AP scores and AP exams. And at Elite, we're just here to help students. So whatever way we can help, please let us know. Will this be recorded? Yes, this is being recorded and will be shared. And so if you missed anything or if you came late, you don't have to worry about that. Are SAT scores still looked into seriously by colleges? Aren't they optional now? They are absolutely optional. You can apply to colleges, great colleges, and get in without strong SAT scores. But it's kind of what I was saying earlier. With so much grade inflation, with so much competition, any data that you can give colleges to show like, hey, I'm not like every other A student at my school. I actually got a 1500 plus on my SAT, or a 34 or 35 on my ACT. It's helpful. So no, it's not required, but it is helpful. And I mean, I guess, sorry, I want to take that back. Some schools do require it. So like MIT, we showed you, they require it. Yale, they strongly encourage you to submit it, even though it's quote unquote optional. But my thinking is most colleges, they want to see your score. They just can't ask for it because it's it's honestly very political right now. As we know, college has never been more accessible than ever. So there's a huge push to encourage students to apply to college that maybe wouldn't have beforehand. And so the decision to remove the SAT requirement from college admissions, it's not something that colleges wanted to do, but they kind of had to do. One, because COVID shut down all the test centers, and two, there were even lawsuits about SAT being discriminatory toward certain socioeconomic demographics. So yeah, it's kind of complicated, but SAT scores are helpful if you can get strong scores. So I'll put it that way. Why is CSA higher than CSP? So again, I think you're referring to the pass rate. So similar to Calc BC having a 40% pass rate for fives as opposed to Calc AB, I think the same thing with CSA. CSA is harder than CSP. So typically more advanced students are taking it and they're going to perform better. Let's see. If a student completed APCSA and got a 5 in 9th or 10th grade, can they miss taking the class in 12th? I'm assuming that means can they just not take it? So I'd say if that student got a 5 on AP Computer Science in the freshman year or sophomore year, most likely they're ready for even higher level coursework. So yes, I would say try to find computer science classes outside of school, but definitely take something. You don't want to just rest on your 5 from 9th grade and then call it a day. You need to demonstrate continued growth, continued mastery over time. Does the A grade or the 5 contribute to the GPA? Okay, so when it comes to GPA boost, your grade in the class is what gives you the GPA boost, not your score on the test. So you could get a 2 on the AP exam, but if you get an A in the class, you still get the extra point on your GPA. Conversely, you could get a C on the AP class and get a 5 on the AP exam, but you're not gonna, I mean, you're still gonna get a boost, but it's still gonna be a C. So yeah, your A is the one that gives you the GPA boost. Are the AP prep classes offered by Elite online or in person? It is both. So contact your local branch. They have in-person classes. They can connect you with online classes. We have everything. We serve thousands of students across the country. So yeah, we have online, we have in person. It really depends on what you want. Could I elaborate more on, oh, sorry, someone wants to see the most recent slide, so I'll backtrack that. Could you elaborate on the priority standing? Absolutely. So let's say that you didn't take any AP or you didn't get any AP credits or college credits in high school. So, and then you go to college. You're going into college as a freshman, just like all the other freshmen. But if you brought with you, let's say like 4 or 5 AP scores that gave you college credit, that credit is now in your account at that college. And you have like 20, 30, 40 units of college credit already completed. That's going to increase your standing and make you more like a sophomore or even a junior, so that when you apply for classes, then you get, when you pick classes, you get priority because it's given in order of seniority. So if you have sophomore standing, you get to register for your classes before freshmen do. And this isn't at every school, but typically at every UC and a lot of larger universities, they have to do this because, you know, it's first come, first serve when it comes to classes. But that's what that means. What does an AP review class at Elite consist of? So AP review at Elite, we focus obviously on just what's covered on the exam. So we know what's on the AP test. We know what's covered the most and what's going to be the best bang for your buck, if you will. And so that's what we focus on. Typically, you're going to do a practice test or part of a practice test. Like 1 week, you might do multiple choice practice. Next week, you might do free response practice. Next week, you might do, extended free response and then review that. So it basically depends on the subject, but we usually have a combination of practice test and review, as well as lecture. So the teacher is going to recap all the important points that you covered in that class to get ready for the AP exam. So you're going to relearn things that maybe you didn't get to master while you're at school, but we're going to reteach it and master it before we get to the AP exam. Our school only offers 2 AP classes junior year and nothing in freshman and sophomore. So can we use Elite Open School? Is this what it means to independent studies? So that's a great question. If your school has limited AP offerings, absolutely you can and should use Elite Open School. So for those of you that don't know, Elite Open School is it's a fully accredited private online middle and high school. So we have every class you can imagine, every AP class you can imagine, a bunch of honors classes. We actually have classes that you don't even find anywhere, like honors blockchain technology, honors cryptocurrency, honors data structures and data science. We have so many course offerings that are UC approved honors and count toward your college GPA that, if you are looking for additional AP or honors courses, Elite Open School is hands down the place you should go. Obviously, there's other options, but we take care of our students. We have proven results. It's not going to be an easy A, so don't think, oh, I can just take a class and it's going to be easy. Like, you have to work, but as long as you put in the work, you will get the result. It's very fair and it's self-paced, so you don't have to worry about the class going too fast and then you studying for a quiz that you're not ready for. You take the quiz when you're ready for it. You take the test when you're ready for it. So it's all at your own pace. But yes, you can take classes through Elite Open School. Just contact your branch and they can take care of you. Is a 4 a good score, especially for highly competitive schools? I'd say it's worth reporting, because if you don't report it, then they're going to assume you got a 3, 2, or 1. So yeah, 4 it's a good score. It's not a great score, but it's a good score. I would say it's a good score. Let's see. My school doesn't offer AP courses for the major I want. So should I do independent study for the AP exam or take it at a community college? I would say you can kind of do both. You can take the community college class and then study for the AP exam independently. You could also take the class for credit, again, through Elite Open School. So you can actually get the credit and then prepare for the AP exam. But yeah, you have a couple options when it comes to that. When would you recommend doing the AP review class? So our AP review classes typically start in March. Some start in February, but you just have to contact your local branch to find out what's specific to you. And yeah, you want to make sure that you study. I'd say like right now is a great time. So March, April, leading into the AP exams in May, now is the perfect time to study. So yeah, you should be doing your AP review now, and that's going to get you ready for May. My daughter is in the AP prep class at Elite, but I'd like to have information about SAT prep in the summer. Oh, so our summer schedule is literally about to come out. I mean, I'd say within the next week or 2 at the most. So you should be getting that in the mail or an email. But if you reach out to your local branch, then they'll have more information for you as well. My high school is phasing out APs. We only have 1 AP class left now. It's an academically rigorous independent school. Do you recommend I take AP exams in support of my intended major? So if your school is phasing out APs, then yeah, I can already tell it's a private school. It's a very, very probably rigorous private school. I would say for your case, AP scores aren't going to be as important because colleges will know how strong your school is, and there's other metrics that they'll have access to substantiate your grades. It's not a bad idea. I think it's still something that you should consider. But another thing to keep in mind is your high school counselors may or may not be supportive of you taking AP exams outside of school. So I would talk to them to make sure you're not doing anything against their advice, because at the end of the day, they're trying to advocate for you. They're on your side. So I would talk to them before you make any decisions. Let's see. The college will request a AP score report at some point, I'm assuming. So will the AP score report show the APs I didn't report? Yes, but at that point, you've already been admitted, so it's okay. It's only if you said you got like a 5, but then you got a 1 or a 2 or a 3, that's obviously a different issue. But if you omitted scores and you only reported some scores, it's okay because it's optional. So it's your option to report them or not. What's the difference between weighted GPA and GPA? So that's a pretty long discussion. We could have a whole webinar just on GPA, but basically if you take AP and certain honors classes, you get an extra point. So typically A's are worth 4 points, B's are 3, C's are 2. If you get an A in an AP class, it's worth +1. So now it's worth 5. A B is worth 4, and so on and so forth. Ooh, this is a good question. Is it important to do a lot of AP courses for 12th grade, whether you are confirmed for a college or not? So I'm not quite sure about the second part of that question, but I'm going to interpret the first part. So is it important to do AP classes in 12th grade? Yes. Colleges care about rigor and also trend. Trend meaning, you took a few sophomore year, a few more junior year, even more senior year. That's what they want to see. They want to see an upward trend in your course rigor. They don't want your classes to get easier as you go further into high school. So yes, you should take AP classes your senior year, but again, don't take more than you can handle because if you end up getting C's and D's, then it's gonna undo everything that you tried to do. Let's see. Does Elite do career counseling? So Elite offers college and career counseling because honestly, those two go hand in hand. Now, keep in mind, our career counseling, it's mainly in the context of college preparation, college admissions, and picking your major. So it's like if you want to go into, let's say, you want to be an engineer, what major should you do? If you want to become a doctor, what major should you do? If you want to become, go into finance, what major should you? So that's what I mean by college and career counseling. But every branch has an expert college admissions and career counselor. So you definitely should reach out to your local branch and just set up an appointment. And I think they'll be able to answer a lot of your questions. Oh, I love this question. What do you think about taking AP classes during the summer? So this is, I think, one of Elite's greatest advantages in terms of providing benefits for students. Most high school students, if they take summer school through their high school, they're just taking regular classes. Like the classic one is a lot of students, they take regular US history the summer before junior year so that they can free up their schedule in 11th grade to do something else. For that, I'm saying, why are you just taking regular US history when you can take honors or AP during the summer? To which they say, well, my school doesn't offer honors or AP during the summer. And that's where Elite's different. Elite has AP and honors courses year round, and you can start almost any time. So rather than just getting regular credit, why not get the extra GPA boost and get AP or honors credit? So I think that's definitely something that you should consider. I live in Michigan and my high school has IB and AP. What is better? what should I choose? Does Elite provide IB courses too? So Elite doesn't have IB courses. Basically, IB is like a track. You're taking certain classes in a certain sequence, and you have a capstone project at the end, typically some kind of research-based paper. Whereas AP, to me, it's more flexible. You know, you're not on a track. You can take this, you can take that, you can take any combination of AP classes you want. So that's the difference. I'd say it really depends on the culture of your school. Some schools are like IB schools. Other schools are more like AP schools. And also, if you look at the IB track and it's really, really rigorous, which it typically tends to be, and you know that you want to be able to have some flexibility, then I'd recommend considering the AP option. But if you want the hardest option available to you and your school has a robust IB culture, then yeah, IB would be good. Please share how Elite Summer online AP classes like AP Psychology, when does it start and the duration? So AP classes typically start, well, it can start technically as early as May. Right when you finish high school semester, you can jump into our online AP class. But usually in terms of our class with the academic support, where we have what's called a mentor or a takt time teacher there to answer questions and to guide you. That's typically in June, but the class goes for about 8 weeks. So you have 8 weeks to finish one semester's worth of work. The exception being computer science. We have an accelerated AP Computer Science A, AP Computer Science Principles. You can actually get 2 semesters of credit done in 1 semester. And that's why AP Computer Science Principles is one of our most popular courses, along with AP Psychology, which is I think our very most popular class. And so, yeah, reach out to your Elite counselor and they'll get you signed up for that and give you more information. If a student took the summer AP course, do they get a discount on the AP review? That's a great question. I would ask your Elite branch for that because we have 23 branches in the US. I can't speak for all 23 of them. So you want to reach out to your branch and get that specific information. Who should we contact if we don't have a local Elite branch? Great question. So if you go to our website and you pre-register, you can just choose your state. And if your state doesn't have an Elite branch, then we have a virtual branch director that's going to reach out to you. And someone is going to be assigned to you to take care of it. So just fill out the online pre-registration form and you should be fine. Let's see, I'm entering junior year. Is it too late to start AP in senior year? You know, I wouldn't say it's too late. It just depends on your goals. If you're trying to, it depends on what colleges you're applying to and what you're targeting. I will say that colleges typically want you to start taking advanced classes your junior year at the latest. So if you can try to take even one your junior year, that'd be better than taking none. But if you just can't for some reason, then yeah, you can start senior year, but it will be something that you need to explain in your college app because they want students taking rigorous classes. And if you're not taking rigorous classes, then they want to know why. Let's see. Will colleges I apply to know if I don't take an AP exam? No. So if you take 5 AP classes, but you only take 4 exams, they will not know you didn't take that 5th exam. So of course, again, there's common sense. They're going to see you took 5. They're going to see 4 scores that you report. So they're going to wonder what happened to that 5th score. But at that point, I'd say you're already taking a lot. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. What I will say is in the future, you know, you might as well just try taking the AP exam because you never know how you'll do. And if you don't do well, you can just leave out the score because it's optional. But if you already didn't sign up for it, then you know it's a done deal. but in the future, you could just try to take it and see what happens. All right, I think that is it in terms of the questions that I see. I'm just gonna hang out for another minute. Yeah, hopefully you found today's webinar helpful. And I do thank you all for joining us today. If you have any other questions, reach out to your elite director. You can also email me. My email's down below, jon.king@eliteprep.com. And great. Oh, thank you. Thank you for the feedback. I really appreciate that. Oh, interesting question. Yeah. So if we're doing an AP course somewhere, can Elite let me do the AP exam? The answer is yes, but it depends on where you are. So we have test centers in Northern California and Southern California. At the moment, we don't have any outside of California. But yes, I would say try to reach out to your local branch and then see if you can get connected. It's probably too late to register for AP exams now. It's not, I don't think it's past the deadline for late registration, but it just might not be available or it might be full. So that's something that you want to consider. But yeah, it doesn't hurt to ask. So I'd reach out to your local branch. Someone's asking, which branch am I in? So I'm actually not part of any specific branch. I work for our headquarter office. I work for the corporate office. So yeah, if you have specific questions, reach out to me and I'll direct you to the person that can best help you. Does Elite work with high schools about AP classes and credits? So that's actually a really, really good question. So I'm assuming you're talking about our AP classes that you take for credit with Elite Open School. So if you take a class through Elite Open School, there's two things. One is you can ask your high school if they'll honor the credit, in which case they'll put it onto the local high school transcript. If they don't, it doesn't matter because Elite Open School is its own school. So when you apply to college, you're going to send your high school transcript, you're going to send your Elite Open School transcript, and the college is going to take that and combine it, and then they're going to recalculate your GPA. So it doesn't even matter if your high school accepts it or not because we have our own transcript and our school is accredited and approved, so it's going to count the same. When do you register for AP exams? So typically AP exam registration happens in October, November. Yeah, it's not too late. There's a late fee, but typically it happens in October, November. All right, I believe that is it for today. Again, thank you all so much for joining us. I really appreciate that you guys took the time to learn more about AP scores and again, what Elite has to offer. And if you have any other questions, reach out to your local branch and they'll be able to assist you. Okay, take care. Bye.